Fran quickly goes into it and she says, us, me, you, it's just not going to happen here. And then he says, you're old enough to be my, and then Fran says, stop it.
Watch it.
Watch it. And he says, my sister.
As soon as she said watch it, he said sister immediately. That was pretty. Yeah.
Welcome back to A Fine Podcast with your hosts, Amanda and
Joseph. Welcome back, everyone.
so excited to be back again talking about The Nanny.
Yes, we're doing episode 4 of season 1 today.
And what is episode 4 called?
The Nuchshlep.
The Nuchshlep.
Yes. Get that crunch in there.
It's hard to pronounce that one. If you were going to say it without the accent, how would you say it?
The Nuchshlep.
Nuchshlep?
Yeah.
Nuchshlep? Would you say that? Nuchshlep.
Nuchshlep.
Nuchshlep?
Nuchshlep. The Nuchshlep.
If you look up the Nuchshlep on Google.
What'd you say?
I'm sorry. You know what I said. If you look up the Nuchshlep on Google, the definition reads as follows. The tag-along or the wing. When you're on a date and your date has a friend, or you have a friend, the friend is a Nuchshlep.
Ah. Well, that's what we find out in this episode.
Nuchshlep.
Yeah. Well, let's start moving into it then.
We'll get right into it. So, in scene 1, I noticed Fran is wearing a very colorful vest again. Did you notice this vest looks really familiar? Is it the same vest as...
Well, yeah, it was the one in the previous episode.
Yes. I feel like I'm seeing this vest all the time now.
Yeah, I mainly particularly remember it from when they were digging in her closet. She was wearing it while they were trying to find something for her to wear. But
yes, that's right.
Yeah,
Yep.
so the rainbow, or not rainbow, but it's just like a multicolored vest returns.
It returns again, which is awesome. So this first scene takes place in the butler's pantry area. What do you think about this butler's pantry area, which seems to be the area that everybody can congregate in and then also spy into whatever conversations are happening in the Sheffield kitchen?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the average mansion. It's a great place to have, and I think this one is perfectly laid out for eavesdropping and doing all sorts of espionage tactics of other family members in the household. So, yeah.
And we have a lot of spies in this household, people who love to just spy on what's going on.
We got a lot of snoopers.
Yes, that's right. I think we see a little bit of like everybody snooping in this episode. So,
yes.
This time it's just Fran and Niles, and they're just in that area to begin with. And Niles is looking sick and he's sneezing, and he tells Fran that he's feeling a bit queer.
Yes, which Fran misinterprets due to the American, I guess, language versus the British language here. So
yes, she says, don't ask, don't tell, but for God's sake, come out of the closet. And he says, ill, Miss Fine. I'm feeling ill.
yes, he was feeling just under the weather.
Yes. So she says, the British, they look like us, they act like us, but they're just foreigners at this point.
Yes. But then this is where Fran continues and does the lips to the forehead thing.
Oh, which I thought was pretty neat. So she can tell what people's temperature, like, okay, so she can tell what temperature that people are, but just by kissing their forehead.
Well, it's just like putting your lips to I mean, my parents did this to me when I was a kid.
Oh, really? And your mom said, oh, okay, that means 99.3.
Well,
like an exact, like Fran did?
No, they didn't do like an exact temperature. I don't know if that's actually possible, but I mean, it would be like, oh, you've definitely got a fever, or no, you're fine, or something like that. So
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, so no, yeah, it was funny to see her do that because I would totally remember, like, yeah, so my parents absolutely did the same thing to me. So,
wow. Well, Fran is super talented to just know to the degree, like 0.3, 99.3. That's what Niles has as a fever. So
I don't know how accurate that is. I'd like to contest that.
maybe she's tested out this method a couple different times, like against a thermometer. to like get it perfect.
Maybe. I don't know. I would say she's maybe in like a 0.5 ballpark, but to the exact
Who
point.
knows? So Fran sends Niles off to bed and she says, I have dinner handled. And he's like, you do? And
Yeah,
she
everyone
has
chimes in here.
Oh, yeah. So everybody goes, you do? They're so shocked that Fran would be able to have dinner for the family. Fran starts to ask the kids, what do they feel like for dinner? And this is when Gracie says, I feel trapped. So we can see Gracie is mentally not doing well again here. She feels trapped for dinner.
Yes, the child with lots of mental problems.
Multiple personalities.
Split.
16 personalities split. And then Fran says to Gracie, maybe we should do the dysfunctional family dinner. With that, they promise you shrimp and then they don't give it to you. Which I thought was funny.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like they're thinking about Chinese food.
Yeah, so think about doing Chinese. Our friend comes up with the idea for Chinese, but then she also hears, well, she's on the phone with them talking about what options they have for takeout, and then they're getting like the generic package or whatever, but then she hears Maxwell possibly coming down. She says, oh, the father's coming down. We might be able to upgrade to the Imperial Feast.
The father may be joining us.
Yeah, we got Rich Daddy paying for us.
Which I have a question about that. Is he fronting the bill for like any dinners that she has to cover? I guess,
I
right?
would figure it's because it's feeding his children. So.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it's coming out. I would assume it's coming out of his pocket. Why would she be paying?
Maybe
for that?
she has like a credit card from him or something, right?
Possibly. I mean, but that was like, weren't they just coming out at that point? They were like pretty brand new.
Yeah. So I'm really curious about how she paid for the meal.
They just mailed a check in to the Chinese place.
Yeah, maybe. So Maxwell comes down and he asks where Niles is at. And then Fran says, oh, he's queer, so we're getting takeout.
Yes, which he's just shocked by this because his good old butler is decommissioned. So
Yes, which is totally shocking. So Fran tells Maxwell she would like to expose the children to different cultures. And that's why she's showing them how to order Chinese food so they can experience what Jewish people eat for dinner. So they can be well-rounded in that culture.
yes, yeah. I didn't realize Jewish people had a big craving for
Chinese.
Yeah. But I guess so.
Yes. So Maxwell says to the children, are you guys sure you wouldn't want to eat at the 21 Club? And the children start like sighing. They're like, oh man, the 21 Club. And I thought that sounded really fancy. I looked it up and it's permanently closed now, but it was a fancy place in Manhattan. And it was an upscale former speakeasy serving American fare in an old New York setting.
Okay. So I was thinking maybe this is because that was their default place to maybe go out.
Yeah, I think so.
So they're probably just sick of it at this point. Our friend's at least offering something new for them. So
And it sounds like they like the idea of casual Chinese food.
I mean, I would be if I've been eating at the same place every time I go out.
Yep.
I need some new exotic, untouched meals before.
Chinese.
Yeah.
I guess that is pretty new to the children.
Yes.
They're used to very fancy things.
To the Sheffield children, it is.
Yes. So Maxwell says, okay, have your fun, order Chinese. And then he says to Fran, make sure that Gracie gets an optimistic fortune if you do so.
Yes, because we don't need our mentally ill child. Mentally ill child to not have a negative or have a bad fortune. It'll change her outlook on life.
Damaging. Further damage to Gracie with that.
Yeah.
So in this next scene here, we see Fran is pacing back and forth because the Chinese food still isn't delivered. And she says that they waited an hour and a half for this delivery. And she's on the phone with the Chinese place asking where it is. And then this is when we hear the doorbell ring. And she says to the guy on the phone, this better be you guys. And then she opens the door. And who's at the door randomly?
Good old Eddie.
Eddie from the party in the first episode,
Yes, where he was a waiter.
a kissing waiter.
Ah, yes, yes. One with the smackaroos on the lips.
To Maggie.
Yes, his former lover, soon to be
Former lover.
No. I guess current lover, or wanting to be current lover.
Okay, here's the thing, too. He comes to the door and he's so shocked. He's like, oh, I thought this house looked familiar. He doesn't remember that this was the house that he worked at.
Yeah, I would think if I got chased out of the house by the owner, I'd probably remember what it looked
You're pretty
like.
familiar with the setting of it.
But maybe because it's through the back door versus the front
Maybe.
door. Which is strange, though. Why would a delivery boy, unless they were given proper instruction to come to the back door, why did he come to the back door versus the front door?
Or maybe he was given that instruction.
Yeah, but we didn't hear it.
Well, maybe it was like Uber where you can write exactly where to go and where to drop off the food.
But they were on the phone.
Yeah, but we didn't hear it. You're right. So that would have had to have taken place outside of our scope.
Yeah, how did this happen? It's a mystery.
Maybe he got lost and then he stumbled in the back entryway. Just altogether, he was lost.
Yeah. He just totally doesn't remember this house.
He ended up right in their kitchen. He's like, whoa, I didn't recognize this place.
Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe he's just a little ditzy or something.
Eddie's a delivery boy, also a waiter. He's like a man of many talents here. And he says he can't come in and talk because he has a couple different orders to get to people. And Fran says, well, I waited an hour and a half. What's everybody else's rush around here? So he comes in and Maggie's really excited to see him again. And he looks really excited to see Maggie again. And Fran tells the kids to go ahead and take the Chinese into the dining room and start eating. And it looks like the kids want to spy on what's going on here.
Yeah. Yeah, we see here where it was Gracie or Brighton. I think it was Gracie who mentioned all the grease on the food.
She's like, oh, greasy.
Yeah, where Fran was saying, oh, it's extra flavor.
Yeah. Like, it's not a bad thing. That means it's going to be really good.
Yeah. But yeah, no, they were all sitting here in the then they all sit in this lovely butler's pantry.
Yes.
And try to snoop on what's happening between Eddie and Maggie.
That's right. So Fran says to Maggie, here's a tip. You can give it to him. Don't give him too much, though, because we don't want to come off as desperate. And then she runs into the butler's pantry to spy herself after telling the kids, stop spying. And then she presses her ear against the door to hear what Maggie and Eddie are talking about.
Yes, as we have Niles then to say, stuck at the door again, Miss Fine.
Ear pressed to the door again.
Yes.
She's caught.
His clever remark here.
That was pretty funny. And she's shocked to see him. She's like, where did you come from? I just sent you to bed to go feel better. And this is when he says, I put on so much eucalyptus rub that I dreamt a koala bear was attacking me.
Yeah, I was attacked by a koala bear. A giant koala.
A giant koala bear.
Yeah, not a bear, just a koala.
A koala. Oh, a koala.
Well, a koala is a koala bear, but...
And then I think Gracie makes a comment and she says, I've had that dream before too.
Yes, yeah. Tagging along with the whole thing again. So...
To go back a little bit, Eddie says, is your father still mad or does he still want to kill me for trying to kiss you at that party? And Fran says, oh, don't worry about him. He knows it was just a kiss. And Eddie says, well, it wasn't just a kiss for me. Do you think that was a smooth line from Eddie?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, he's 16. He's clearly very interested in this girl, so...
So the conversation with Eddie and Maggie ends, and then Maggie and Fran are celebrating with each other, and Fran's asking, oh, how did it go? And Maggie then tells Fran, oh, he asked me out. And she says, oh, he asked you out? How great. They're like jumping up and down celebrating. And then Brighton comes in the middle and he says, oh, wonderful. Like, what are you going to tell Dad? So that's the huge dilemma now, is breaking the news to Mr. Sheffield that Maggie was asked out on a date.
Yeah, Brighton steps in here and plays his normal mischief child and has to bring the bad news to the situation.
Yep. He really put a damper on things here.
Indeed. So this is where we move on.
Maxwell brings Cece a birthday present in his office, his home office.
Yes.
And Cece says that she thought they were going out to eat at Les Cirque. And I looked this restaurant up too, and it says worldwide food experts have ranked it amongst one of the best restaurants in the world.
And it's still open?
The atmosphere is exciting, elegant, and cheerful. It's currently closed, not still open.
Dang.
It was a French restaurant that had several locations throughout New York City in the borough of Manhattan
Wow.
for more than 40 years.
Well, that's a shame.
And it's closed, just like the other one.
Yeah, man. Well, so Max wants to present the gift to Cece beforehand. He figured he'd do it in his office. So he kind of cues it up like it might be some big thing, like he's going to announce his love for Cece.
Well, he says, hold out your hand and close your eyes.
Well, that, right, in a little bit, as he's ramping up to that, he says, Cece, you need someone to come home that loves you. And
someone to come home to you.
yes. And that loves you and so forth. And so she thinks that's going to be him. She's going to get her man now. But yes, she closes her eyes.
Well, he also gets down in like a proposal position too in front of her. This whole thing is like so misleading to her, the way he positioned this.
Yeah, but I mean, for him, he's not thinking that at all.
He's so clueless. He doesn't realize if I get down in a proposal position.
Because I don't think he really believes the whole thing about her having a thing for him. He thinks it's just like a big business partner thing. Yeah.
Oblivious.
So he's not really thinking that, if I do this, she's going to freak out and think it's some proposal or date or something. So
you deserve someone you can come home to, someone that loves you.
Yeah.
Close your eyes, hold out your hand. And then this is when Niles helps with everything, and he comes in with Chester, the dog, on a leash, and he's holding the leash, and then they wrap the leash around Cece's hand that she's held out. And that's her gift, is a dog, which I think is crazy too. So gifting someone a dog that you don't know if they're like an animal person or if they want a lifelong commitment for the dog, like a possible 20-year commitment for a small dog.
Yeah. I mean, this is a little, well, especially because we find out that she's really not a dog fan at all. So I would have thought maybe he would have caught on quickly that she was not an animal person. So
I just think that's crazy to even give it to someone who is an animal person. Like maybe they didn't want a dog at that current moment, or you never know. That's like a personal decision.
It was a bold gift.
Very, very, very bold.
Well, so this is what I want to talk about over this scene too, is we have Niles come in here, which he was sick. But then here he's all totally up and ready and not sick at all.
Well, maybe he had a stuffy nose still, or some lingering side effects.
Yeah, I mean, but later on, in a later scene, we see where Max says, "Oh, great to have you back, Niles," and I don't know. I guess it just seems, yeah. But I guess it just seems strange to me. Like we had him sick in the previous one, he was still sick. Then we had this scene randomly where he just is totally fine, and then a future scene we have Max like congratulating that he's back.
Well, maybe he wasn't fully recovered yet, but
But
his only job was to help walk in the dog, which Max walked in with him. So I didn't understand why he even needed to be there, I guess.
Yeah.
But maybe they filmed this scene out of order or like put it in a different order.
That's what I was going to bring up, is maybe they thought later that they'd start off the scene with him sick or something, and they already shot this one.
Well, that's interesting that you picked up on that.
I don't know. I just thought that was...
That's interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of an interesting thing that they set up, but...
I could see that. And I didn't see that while I was watching the episode, so...
Yeah, I don't know. I picked up on that. So anyway,
So they put the dog leash in her hand, and then she opens her eyes and she says, really confused, "An engagement dog?" And Maxwell goes, "I beg your pardon?" And she goes, "An engaging dog. What an engaging dog," to cover up the fact that she thought Maxwell was proposing to her.
yeah.
Sad. I feel bad for Cece in this episode.
I mean, that was a quick phrase to come up with, from engagement to say engaging dog,
An engaging dog.
even though it doesn't really fit the situation at all.
Yeah, that's true.
Nonetheless, it was quick.
Quick. So she says, "Oh, well, thank you so much for this dog." And the dog growls at her. And this is where Niles comes in with his comment here.
Yes. Buffy and a good judge of character.
Yep.
This is a roast for Niles against Cece.
And this is our only roast of the whole episode.
Yes, we don't see any more in this episode, unfortunately. So this does bring us to the fancy.
Is this heaven or is this hell? Maybe sometimes both as well. Naughty nights and sassy CC.
Fluffy and a good judge of character.
Oh, it was Fluffy?
Yes.
Whoops. I said Buffy.
I thought you said Muffy when we were first talking about it. And then I thought, did I hear that incorrect?
Oh, I wrote Buffy.
Buffy, like
Or like,
like buff with muscles.
yeah, I don't know.
Little spunky Chester
I
is
mean-
buff with muscles.
Yeah.
Fluffy.
Fluffy.
Yes.
That makes
Because he has a lot
more
of hair.
sense.
Yep.
Yeah. Yes,
So that was the big burn from Niles.
indeed. So also with this dog, this is actually too in real life. This is Fran's dog, right?
Yes. They say you can't expect a dog to just love you at first sight. And this is where Fran comes in and she says, "Oh my goodness, what a cute dog." And then Chester just falls right into Fran's arms and loves Fran. And she says, "Oh, he looks just like a chestnut. You should call him Chester." And Cece says, "Well, I think I'll be naming my own dog. Thank you." And then she growls, and then Chester growls at her. And then she says, "Oh, Chester it is."
Yes, yeah.
Yes, so this is Fran's dog in real life. Yep, Chester.
Which it's kind of funny if you watch him, the dog, while they're having their normal sessions or whatever. When they're talking to each other, you kind of look at the dog. The dog's just totally focused on Fran.
Loves Fran.
Yeah.
You can tell that Chester has such a bond with Fran.
Yeah. And even at one point where I think Max or Cece was talking, Fran kind of looks down real quick and teases Chester a little bit, and he gets really excited. And
Oh, that's fun.
so
I think it's really fun she had the opportunity to have her real life dog on set
yeah,
with her.
yeah.
So Chester Drescher was born in 1982 in Queens, New York. He was an actor known for The Nanny in 1993 and also Cadillac Man in 1990, which I don't know.
Oh,
What is that? I don't know.
I don't know.
He died in 2000. When Chester died, Fran had him cremated and placed in a small ceramic box inscribed, "I just love you, that's all," which she keeps in her kitchen on her black marble countertop, surrounded by pictures and candles. So she was very close to Chester.
But yeah, 18 years.
Yeah, he meant the world to her. So you can really see their bond throughout the series.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So
Chester, an actor, born in
Chester.
Queens, New York. So Cece says, "Okay, I've had enough. I think I'll take Chester home and just put him to sleep." And Fran says, "You do mean put him to bed, right?" And Cece says, "Yeah, whatever."
yeah, I mean, Cece probably would blink an eye or not even bat an eye
That's
if he was put under.
that's so terrible. That is not the kind of person you gift a dog to.
That's why I'm so stunned that it's Max didn't know this at all.
And to think that, so Fran says, "Oh, you should have went with the toaster oven." That's what she says to Max. So he was debating whether or not to give her a toaster oven or a dog whose life can last up to 20 years. Wow, decisions there. Like an object or a live being that someone has to take care of.
Yeah, but toaster oven isn't going to be something that loves you when you come home.
Sure, if you're just looking for some warm bread when you come home every night.
Yeah. Make me a pizza. My pizza will love me every night.
Yeah, there you go. Have it inscribed. Make something like unique about it. Sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, Fran then sits on Maxwell's desk to talk about Maggie being asked out on the date. And Maxwell says, well, that's not really a dilemma or a problem. Just tell her no. And she says, well, that's pretty much a dilemma because I already told her she could go. And Max says, well, why did you already tell her that? Now I'm going to look like a crazy or what does he say? An ogre.
Right. Well, it's because the whole bad guy thing, because Fran's the one being all supportive of it, and he's not for it, so...
Actually, I don't know if they say ogre in this episode. I might be thinking of a different episode.
No, they say ogre.
Do they?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is... Right, so it's the whole... It's like the whole parenting thing. You got the mom and dad where mom's all for it, and then dad has to be the one to shut it down, so then he looks like the bad guy in front of the child. So this is where Max has to basically kind of force his hand of being willing to let her go on this. So this is where the title of the episode falls into place now.
That's true. So to get into it, he says, well, do I know the person who asked her out? And then he quickly finds out it's Eddie. And he says, Eddie, the kissing waiter?
Yes. But then Fran tries to make him feel a little more at ease about the whole situation because he's like, oh, well, he's going to Yale.
And Fran says, Yale is in the school, but not the locksmith school, which I didn't know there was one called Yale.
Oh, yeah, I only know the Ivy League school.
Yep. So then Maxwell says, well, what is he studying? And then Fran like mutters something in the corner. And then he says he's studying llamas because what she said sounded like llama. I don't know. What was your interpretation of what she said?
Well, yeah, I mean, Max says that, but then it was like the whole thing is like, does she not know what she was just trying to make something up?
I don't know. Is the whole thing a lie?
Well, this is what I
thought she was making up the whole thing.
Yeah, the whole thing I thought originally was, well, he's going to Yale. I thought she made that up. And then he's going to drama to be an actor or something.
Which I don't think that part's made up because later on,
well,
he's talking about his headshot and stuff. So.
Right. Well, that's what makes me confused about this. Cause
I guess I'm really confused.
she knows, I guess she knows he's an actor. Or, I don't know. Maybe she just discovers that her lie at this point is actually reality or something. But it seems like she doesn't know that here. But then he does mention about trying to be an actor later on. So
yeah, because why would she be muttering drama?
Yeah. Because here she's trying to butter him up, thinking, oh, well, if he's in the industry of Max, maybe Max will find him more
appealing,
likable, or appealing.
Right.
So,
but then Maxwell doesn't really like this. He says he's studying drama. My daughter is dating an actor.
Where did I go wrong?
Yeah, he hates it actually.
Yeah. So then.
So yes, they do say ogre here because I have in my notes that Fran is the good guy and Maxwell's the ogre that won't let his daughter go to the ball.
Right. She says, or because Max says, I think something like, I think I'm an ogre or something, and she says maybe that term might have been used.
Yeah, she's like, oh well, you don't feel like that. Well, the word may have been used.
Yeah.
So they're calling him an ogre behind his back.
Yeah, he's an ogre that lives there. That's a troll. Never mind. He's the ogre under the bridge. But
the ogre under the bridge. So Fran says, come on, you can't shelter her forever. The boys will come knocking, and if you don't let them in the front door, she's just going to start sneaking out the window to go see them. And she says, I've seen it 100 times before, to try to convince Maxwell, just let her go on this date.
Yeah, I mean, she's reaching this teenager point. A lot of teenagers being the rebellious stage, they're going to go do what they want anyway.
That's right.
So that's where Fran's logic is coming into play. But so then Max agrees on the terms that Fran goes with her.
Yeah, he says, well, have fun at the movies tomorrow. And Fran says, well, I'm not going. And then he says, oh, yes, you are. You're going to essentially babysit the whole date.
To chaperone.
To chaperone. And then this is where she busts out the term Nuchshlep.
The Nuchshlep.
So she says, how come you're making me the Nuchshlep here? He says, the what? And she says, the tag along. The chaperone.
Yeah, why do I have to third wheel this?
Not fair.
But then she's upset too because now she thinks it's going to totally ruin Maggie's date. So she's bummed by this. Then Maggie walks in and she's like, well, can I go? She's like, yeah, but you're not going to like the fine print.
And then she says, I have to go with you. And then Maggie says, you mean on my first date, you're going to be sitting there right next to me?
With a cute guy?
I don't. Does Maggie have a New York
Nah, she
accent like that?
Cute guy.
And then Maggie says, whoa, thank God. She's relieved and loves the idea that Fran will be there.
All right, so then we move on to the next scene where we're at the movie theater with Maggie and Fran. We see they're trying to get their seats next to this old couple. And they say, can you scoot over? I said, why? There's 2 seats right there. I said, well, yeah, but we have my date is getting the, what are they, beverages and, not condiments, food, basically the popcorn and the soda. So can you move over, please?
So they say, what's wrong with the 2 seats? And Fran says, well, we're 3. And they say, well, you said she's on a date. How are you 3? And she says, well, I'm like chaperoning this date. And then the couple says, okay, move down for the Nuchshlep. Move down. And they're like all annoyed at her being the chaperone.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, so I guess they're Jewish here as well.
Because they completely understood and they used that term.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. And then they said also that she looks too young to be a Nuchshlep.
Right, right, yes, yeah.
And then they also said, you don't have to be old, you just have to be a loser.
Yeah, they're just really trying to dig it in Fran here.
And then Fran defends herself and she says, are you two going to talk like this the whole movie?
Yeah.
Because they keep poking fun at her, making her feel worse probably than she already does for being here in the first place.
Yeah, they were a pretty mean couple.
They're a pretty brutal couple.
Yeah.
Maggie asks if she's being too quiet on the date, and she's asking advice from Fran here while Eddie is still gone. And Fran just tells her to elaborate more, be herself, but be louder at doing this. So Eddie comes back and then she screams, hello!
Would you like some popcorn?
I love popcorn!
Yeah, her shouting here was pretty amusing.
And then the couple is still talking about Fran being a Nuchshlep in the background, like this whole time.
Yeah, they're not letting it up on her.
So things are a little like awkward, and Eddie comes in with sodas, and then they make jokes about the soda, and Fran says the soda should come with a lifeguard, and Eddie says, I think mine has an undertow. And Maggie tries to relate to both of them. They're both witty and quick with their humor, but then hers just like comes out awkward. And what does she say? Something like, I could drink so much soda and I could just drink it or something.
Yeah, well, it's like, man, this is so big. I need a lifeguard or something. And then he says, oh, you'll get caught in the undertow. Or I'll get caught in the
But
undertow.
what's Maggie's response?
And then, Maggie goes into saying, it's so much.
I don't know how I'm going to drink it all. That's what it was.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be able to drink it all. I was pausing for dramatic effect. Because that's what she did. Because she was trying to literally think of anything she could say. Nothing came up. So then she's like, I can't drink it all.
which was not funny.
Right.
And then the movie starts and Fran says, there is a God. Thank God, or something.
Yeah, which I didn't. I guess what? Because the movie's rolling or something.
Yes,
'Cause of
because then
how
they don't
bad
have
she
to.
was talking.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like any more awkward talking, it would just but it would have been so awkward that it would have crushed everything.
Yeah.
So in this next scene, we're back in the dining room after the date. It's in the morning, and Niles is very proud of his Belgian waffles that he prepared. This was an old family recipe that got passed down to him.
Yes, his grandfather's recipe that he served for King George VI.
Yes. How cool is that?
Yeah.
But they don't really look that excited to be eating the grand Belgian waffles. I would be really excited if I were there.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they're just not waffle people.
Or maybe they're just used to fancy at this point. So,
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I know my mom makes a good Belgian waffle.
yeah. Did that recipe get passed down?
I don't know. I'd have to ask her. But I mean, I was always excited for those. So,
Yeah, those are great.
yeah.
So then Fran comes down and she goes, ooh, Eggos. And Niles gets really offended. He's like, they're Belgian waffles, Miss Fine.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you can tell. I mean, it's so very easy to tell an Eggo from a Belgian waffle.
Yeah, one's like thin and
Yeah, the
small.
ridges are very thick on a Belgian waffle, where the Eggos are just
smaller squares
Yeah.
and multiple mini squares.
and a lot smaller.
Yeah. Eggos. So Maggie has her head in the syrup, as Mr. Sheffield says. And she says on the date she just sat there like a lump, like she didn't have anything good to say. And this is when Brighton pokes fun at her too and says, well, mashed potatoes sit on everyone's plate like a lump and everybody loves those.
Yeah, I thought that was a great comparison.
Yeah, that was a pretty good comparison.
Yeah.
So Fran says, what are you talking about? You were a riot on the date. All the things that you said. Remember you said this. Remember you said that. And Maggie goes, you said that. You said that. You. And Fran then says, boy, was I on last night or what?
Yeah. I mean, I guess, well, because we saw from the first thing that Fran and Eddie seemed to kind of kick it off better than Maggie and Eddie. So I guess she just kept coming with the clever wits as time went on.
Man. So they can't think of anything funny that Maggie did on the date to defend her and her feeling really bad about herself now. And Maggie calls herself worthless, pathetic, and an unlovable nothing. And then Gracie goes to Maggie and says, can I have your waffle?
Maggie's just so upset from last night that she feels like she totally ruined the date and that Eddie no longer is interested in her. So she's clearly very upset about this, which leads her to not be wanting to eat. Therefore, Gracie is
Hungry.
extra hungry for some reason and wants to eat Maggie's.
But it's almost like Gracie's not picking up on the intense emotions that Maggie's feeling, because that's not really an appropriate time to ask someone for their waffle.
Well, that's right, because this, out of her 16 personalities, this personality just doesn't care about Maggie.
This personality is just hungry.
Yes.
Yeah. So Maggie's worried she'll never hear from Eddie again. And Fran says, I bet he'll call you. And then the phone rings. And then Niles comes in and he says, it's Master Eddie on the phone. And Fran says, see, what did I tell you? And then Niles says, he wants to speak to you, to Fran, and not Maggie.
Which he says, me? And he says, yes, you.
That's pretty funny.
Niles with the clever wit, just bringing it on.
Yeah,
It's fantastic.
it was really funny. So she's talking to him, and then she quickly hangs up the phone, and Maggie says, well, and then Fran says, he wants to see me Friday night. Can you pass the syrup? And then Maggie says, take it. You just take everything else. Why not take that too?
Yeah, she's clearly very upset here. And I mean, from what the evidence looks like at this point, yeah, it's as my voice cracks. The
Yeah.
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 She's very upset to. I mean, she rightfully upset to
Right.
seem like she's losing her boyfriend to her nanny.
So she says, I trusted you and you stole my boyfriend. I hate you. And then she gets up, slams her chair, and runs away.
Yeah, has to storm off.
The classic storm off.
Yes. So now Fran is upset that she feels this way and feels like she needs to rectify the issue somehow. So
Yes. So in this next scene, Maxwell's desperately trying to get Maggie out of her room, and he mentions that they can go out for ice cream, and Maggie doesn't budge at all at this, and he says to Fran, well, ice cream used to work for us, and I guess now it doesn't.
yeah, so he wanted to try to take her to Rumpelmeyer's,
Yeah.
which Rumpelmeyer's was a cafe and ice cream parlor
Ooh.
in the Hotel St. Moritz. It's part of a chain started by Anton Rumpelmeyer. It was a popular place for children's birthdays.
Hey. Is it partial to New York or is it in the U.S.? Just different places.
It's just the one place.
Okay.
Yeah. But the hotel closed in 98, so
Oh.
Rumpelmeyer's is no more as well. So.
Wow, everything closed that was referenced in this episode.
Yeah, so nothing's surviving.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Ah. So this is when Fran says she should have never went on this date. If she didn't go on this date, none of this would be happening right now.
Yeah, so Max and Fran start getting into a little debate here, and Fran's basically blaming Max that this whole thing is his fault since he forced Fran to go on the date, where Max is saying Maggie shouldn't even be dating yet at this point, so how is this my problem?
Like essentially it's Fran's fault for telling her she can go on the date in the first place.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and then Max mentions that Fran pushed her into the date and that Fran is pushy. He mentions that all Fran does is push, which she's very offended by that.
Yes.
So then and also Niles is in the background here dusting because they're in the living room at this point, and he's like, "Oh, I can't hear you. My cold is still acting up."
Yeah, because they ask Niles who's right here.
Yeah, which he doesn't want to obviously.
Of course not.
Get in the middle of this fight. So.
Oh, I can't hear you guys. Yeah, right.
My cold is still acting up.
Max says she should have sat in the back of the theater like a proper Nuchshlep.
Yes. Which I guess what I was first thinking that's what she would have done. So I guess in
that's what I thought too.
But still, I don't know. I mean, how would you, if things get out of hand, you can't control the situation from back there because then you'd have to disturb the whole movie theater. So.
I guess you'd have to walk up and separate them or something.
Yeah, so I don't even really understand that logic either. So I don't know how that would have.
Well, remember in My Date with the President's Daughter, a wonderful movie, the Secret Service folks were like their chaperones for their time at the movies, and they stood all the way in the back, but they were able to escape the Secret Service very quickly because they were in the middle of the theater, and then they ducked down and then they snuck out. But yeah, I guess you're not really watching very closely from the back.
Yeah.
It's hard to see what's going on,
Well,
too.
that just proves more theory of, you can't, you need to be right there.
Right
so
there in the action.
Fran was sitting in the right spot.
Yep.
So it's not her fault there.
So Maxwell's then saying here, like, you just have to make everybody like you. Everybody seems to like you better. Eddie likes you better. And then he says, even Cece's dog preferred you over her.
Yes. Which then she mentions, can I help it if I effervesce?
And And then Maxwell says, this didn't happen with the other nannies and their chin whiskers. Who are these nannies that they had?
They're just more mature women than Fran
That didn't
in terms of age.
use a tweezer or...
Yes. Well, then Fran brought up in the age of electrolysis,
Oh, yeah.
which
that's
I didn't
true.
really understand because, I don't know, maybe I just don't understand women or like women's
Hair removal
yeah.
process.
I didn't understand how that was
What is that, like laser hair removal or something?
I guess. I mean, electrolysis is the process by which an electric current is passed through a substance to effect of a chemical change. So
Oh, would that count as a laser?
I guess that's laser hair removal or something. Is that what that's supposed to imply?
I would think so. I don't know when that was invented, but that's a pretty popular thing to do, especially if you have, let's say you have chin whiskers. The easiest thing to do with that would probably be laser hair removal, so you wouldn't have to constantly keep shaving or plucking in the same area.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what she's referring to at this point. So, all right. So after the comments about electrolysis and hair removal, so this whole argument, I think, basically kind of brings up more tension between Max and Fran, which I think cues us into
Dapper daddies, taking the backwards.
Yes, Maxwell is just like confused, infuriated with Fran and gets into this big argument with her here.
yes, more tension between them, which has caused this argument here, and yes, Dapper Daddy's problems.
So Maxwell says sometimes the boundaries aren't clear here, and that Fran treats Maggie more like a girlfriend than a nanny relationship. And then Fran says, "Oh, that's genius, a girlfriend. Thanks, Mr. Sheffield." And this is where Fran has a light bulb moment and comes up with the OGC.
The light bulb. Yes, the original girlfriend's code.
The official girlfriend's code.
Oh.
That's what I have in my notes.
Oh, well, I'm just thinking, OG.
Like original OG.
Yeah. I thought Fran maybe coined this back then. I didn't even realize it. But I guess not. If this was official.
I guess not.
That's what I first thought. I was like, wow, did everyone bring this up because of this? But
No, but I think this counts as a finesse moment.
it does. Yes.
The official girlfriend's code.
Yes. Her OGC.
Fran finds finesse.
She now has her solution to basically solve her conflict with Maggie.
That's right. So she goes into Maggie's room and then offers her a Malamar, which is the same dessert that Sylvia offered Fran in the first episode when she got fired from being the nanny, which I thought was interesting. They must really love Malamars.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yep. And then Maggie says, "No, thanks. I'm just too depressed to eat here." And she said she says it's pretty depressing losing her boyfriend to her nanny. And this is where Fran says, "I like to think of us as just friends. Like, I'm not like your nanny officially. You and I were just good friends." And then she uses Val as a reference too, and just says it's kind of like the relationship she has with Val. And she says her and Val never let things like this ruin their friendship. And they go by the official girlfriend's code. And it's called the OGC for short. And Maggie says, "What is this? What's the OGC?" She's like really interested in learning what this is. And then this is when Fran just describes, "Oh, it's a whole big thing. You don't know what the OGC is?" She acts like all surprised, but she just made this up, right?
Oh, I don't think she made it on the spot. I think this was like a thing that they actually followed, like Fran and Val did in high school and whatnot.
But do you think they called it the OGC? Or
They
do you
probably
think
just called
Fran
it
just...
the girlfriend's code?
Yeah.
Probably not the official one, but it's
But I
probably
thought Fran hatched this whole idea.
yeah. I mean, I think it was like a girlfriend's code, and then she is now calling it the OGC, since I guess it worked for them, since they're still friends at this point. So it can be official now.
Yeah. So Fran says that there's a bunch of different rules that are in this OGC that you need to know. And rule number 1 is you never gossip about your best friend. And then she says, that's a rule that nobody follows, which I thought was interesting. And then she keeps going all the different rules, going over all the different rules.
Yeah, but then right. So those, the gossiping. Then we had the girls can't date other girls' boys. Which then this, I actually thought she threw a little shade here of Val, where she talked about the situation where the boys. I mean, how am I getting this? If the boys that were interested or dating Val then had an interest in Fran, but there was never a situation where they were dating Fran and had an interest in Val.
She said it would work the same way. And then she gave that as an example, and she says, wait, no, that never happened.
Yeah.
As in, that last scenario could just never happen in the first place.
This was like a little...
That's kind of mean, right? I mean, I guess it's honest because I guess it really didn't happen, but that's still shady.
Well, we don't know that.
Yeah, I guess.
This is why we needed that love triangle from the first episode.
With Danny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Danny,
see?
Val, and Fran.
All of his points back to that original
yes,
concept. Yes,
that's right. Would you feel good if you were Val and you heard Fran talking like this?
I mean, this might take a blow to the self-esteem.
Yeah, maybe. Just like, oh, that would never happen.
Yeah. So then Fran finally explains the rule to Maggie, where if a girl falls for a guy and the idiot guy falls for her effervescent but totally blameless friend, then the aforementioned friend was obliged to dump him. I like the legal terms here.
Yeah, that was pretty crafty.
Yeah, so basically here Fran will dump him since he was supposed to be dating Maggie and not Fran. So then Maggie says, oh, you'll do that for me, and their friendship is rekindled.
She says, honey, it's the OGC.
Yes.
And then Maggie feels much better now, and she says, okay, I think I'm ready for that Malamar. And then Fran shows an empty box and waves it in the air, and she says, well, another rule is every girl for herself when it comes to food.
To chocolate.
To chocolate.
Yes.
Chocolate.
Yes, rule 3 is that. Then we move on to the next scene where we're in the kitchen. She's still, I guess, explaining rules because she says rule 27 is dumping someone, you should always look your best. So,
so Fran dressed up for the occasion.
yes, she's making sure she's looking fine. Fran Fine is trying to look fine.
Wow. So Fran says, should I let him down gently? And Maggie says, destroy him.
Yeah, that's a little aggressive.
Pretty aggressive. And then Fran says, here, you can go to the butler's pantry. What do you think it's for? It's for listening in on conversations like these. So go ahead and listen in while I have a conversation with Mr. Eddie.
Yes.
So Eddie's at the door and he brought spare ribs for Fran as a gift. And Fran quickly goes into it and she says, us, me, you, it's just not going to happen here. And then he says, you're old enough to be my, and then Fran says, stop it.
Watch it.
Watch it. And he says, my sister.
Yeah, I liked how quickly they played that off really well. Like the timing of that, of how quick that was, right? As he was saying, as soon as she said, watch it, he said sister immediately. That was pretty
good.
Yeah.
He's like surprised. He's like, what? You thought I was interested in you? You're too old, essentially. That's what he's saying.
Yes.
And Fran says, well, you brought me ribs, and how come you brought me this gift, and why are we meeting? And he said, well, I brought the ribs as kind of like a gift for you so you can put in a good word with Mr. Sheffield for me.
Well, too, and with this gift, I wanted to point out where Fran also calls him, what are you, the gift giver of Don Juan? Which Don Juan he was also known as Don Giovanni, but he was a fictional Spanish guy who basically devoted his life to seducing women.
What?
Yes. So
Wow, that's weird.
yeah, so this was before, I guess we should back up a little bit because this was right before he broke it to her, or where she thinks,
Where he says you're too old.
right, yeah,
How could you think this?
yeah,
Oh, that's interesting.
But yeah,
So
no.
it's right when he gave her the ribs.
yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Right. So he's using the ribs as a bribe for Fran, so she'll put in a good word about Eddie to Maxwell because Eddie is interested in being an actor.
Yes, which goes back to her whole thing about Fran making it up that he's an actor, and
Yeah, so maybe she already knew, but he shares his picture and his resume with her and says, I want you to give this to Mr. Sheffield because I felt like if I went through Maggie, then Maggie would think that I was just using her essentially to get into one of Maxwell's plays or to get known. And that's not the truth at all. I'm interested in Maggie. And besides, you're the one who's like verbose, is what he was saying to Fran. So you could put in the good word for me.
yeah, you talk a lot.
You talk a lot, essentially, is what he said.
Yeah. So then this is where he's kind of not, I mean, I would say this is a pretty nice gesture by him thinking that she should do it rather than Maggie, because then, yeah, I would think
That'd be horrible.
Maggie would get the wrong idea and that would kind of ruin the whole thing. So this
I
was
would-
kind of genuine for him to think this.
I would think so, but just the fact that you're giving in your picture resume to her father in the first place is kind of weird. I don't know. I think I would still have the thought in my head, like, are you just using me to get to him somehow, even though you didn't go through me for this one, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it all part of it? But at the same time, I really don't think that makes Maxwell like him very much, that he's dating Maggie. It's really not a good look for him, or it doesn't get him into Maxwell's plays any sooner because Maxwell's not a big fan of Maggie dating anyway.
Right, yeah.
So it's not a really good in.
I mean, there's no brownie points for Max, but there's brownie points for Maggie.
He couldn't find any other way except to go through his girlfriend's father. Why doesn't he go
Yeah, but
share his stuff with Andrew Lloyd Webber then?
yeah, because he doesn't know. At least he has Max, regardless of it being negative or positive. At least he knows who he is. Going to Andrew Lloyd Webber is just a random person off
It's
the
true.
street asking him. So
It's true, but wouldn't you wait until you were a little bit more established in the relationship to maybe work this into the conversation so you don't like look like a
yes,
user?
but he's a 16-year-old kid who's not thought all this out yet.
Wow.
I mean, I was not the most strategical thinking at 16, so I can understand that.
Wow. Well, I guess so. I guess if it's something he's really interested in anyway, so
I mean,
Good for
it must
him.
be, since he's already making this request.
but that totally makes sense now why he called Fran and did this whole thing separate. Not to date Fran, not because he was interested in Fran, not because Maggie was a lump of potatoes, but because he didn't want to come off as a user.
Yeah, but ultimately, Fran is the secret weapon in all this as well, because she can smooth talk anything to Max. She can
I'd love to see her do this one.
Ah,
Hey, the guy who's dating your daughter wants to be in one of your plays.
I shall use that oil talk to really lay it on Max and warm him up to it.
Actually, maybe Maxwell would be down for it because he would think like, oh, if he gets like a big head after being in one of my plays, maybe he'll focus less on like spending time with Maggie.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe he'll go big and forget her.
Yeah. So this could actually go in his favor.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Or maybe if he dates, maybe he says he doesn't have to pay him as much. Half of your pay is dating my daughter,
Yeah.
so that it's a
Maxwell can
Cost
save
thing.
money.
cost thing for him.
So Eddie says he really likes her. He didn't want her to think that he was using her. And then Fran says, okay, like she gets the whole thing now. And then Fran opens up the butler's pantry and everybody's sitting there listening to what just happened, which essentially they're painting as Fran got dumped.
Right. And she says there's 19 rooms in this house and everyone's in the same room.
And then they all make up an excuse about why they're there. And Niles is like, I was just getting the ladle. And
Yeah.
what's Maxwell's excuse? I forget. He's like looking for the salt and pepper or something.
Yeah.
Every person's like looking for something.
Right.
All in this tiny little butler's pantry.
Yeah. Which Niles would be the only one probably even halfway believable, but still isn't.
Still
obviously
wasn't.
Everything is
Yeah,
just pointing to pointing to the eavesdropping.
So Fran says, yep, you guys heard it. Like, he wasn't interested in me. And then Maggie says, well, now do I have to go and dump him because he dumped you to fit in with the girlfriend's code? And then Fran says, well, technically he was never into me in the first place. So you go and you can go be nice and talk to him and continue to date him now.
It's a loophole in the code.
A loophole.
Yeah.
Before Maggie goes out and talks to Eddie, she asks Maxwell his permission if she can go out and talk. And he says, well, sure, go out and talk with him. And then Fran says, wow, you're letting them go out for a walk now? And they can go out with each other and talk. And then Maxwell says, well, someone wise told me that she would just sneak out anyway if I closed the opportunity for her.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah. Which, yeah, Max ends up taking Fran's advice here. And
He says, a pushy old broad taught me that.
yeah.
And then this is where Cece enters back in the scene, and she's wearing like a full-on like fox like around her neck.
Right. But it plays it off like it might be
Everybody's
Chester.
like, oh, like huge gasps. They're like, oh my gosh, it could be Chester.
Yeah, she's wearing Chester now.
She's like, hello, all. And they're like, oh my gosh. But then Chester comes running in, and then Fran goes, thank God.
Yeah. He was not skinned alive.
No.
And then that's how the scene ends. The episode ends.
Yeah, that's how the episode ends. So there's one bonus scene, one little tiny bonus scene.
Right in the outro as the credits are playing. We see Fran flossing Chester.
Yeah, flossing his teeth.
Yeah.
Did you know dogs should have their teeth flossed, or should they have their teeth flossed?
I would assume so because they're just like human teeth. I mean, we brush our dog's teeth, but
Yeah, we do brush their teeth,
Well-
but we don't floss.
yeah,
Should we be flossing?
I don't think they would react to that. But I mean, I'm amazed at how well Chester takes the
Yeah,
teeth flossing.
he's great. He just
Yeah.
sits there,
Yeah, I
well
thought that was
behaved.
quite impressive.
Maybe we should floss with our dogs.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Comment below if you floss with your dogs.
Yes, yeah, let us know. Who else out there does that?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's time to hit the recap.
Recap.
Let's put this all together. These moments are forever.
Recap time.
We have Niles feeling queer.
He's queer.
Fran trying to tell him to come out of the closet. Fran doesn't, he's ill.
He's ill. Ill.
Then we find them needing Chinese food for dinner.
It's Jewish.
Yes. Then
Grease flavor.
Eddie Kissy Boy Waiter Boy comes in through back door, delivering Chinese food.
The kissing waiter.
Yes. Maggie, nervous. They go on a date. Fran's excited for them. They move on.
Maxwell doesn't want her to go.
No, he doesn't.
Maxwell says Fran has to be a chaperone.
Yes, she needs to be Nuchshlep.
Nuchshlep. She needs to be Nuchshlep.
Nuchshlep. You be Nuchshlep. They go to theater.
Couple in theater mad at her being Nuchshlep.
Yes. Maggie shouts at him to think she is attractive that way.
Popcorn. I love popcorn.
Yes. Popcorn. Dining room next day. Maggie embarrassed. Fran on fire with jokes. Niall says, you.
Eddie calls, wants Fran, not Maggie.
Yes.
Eddie delivers ribs.
Yes.
Maggie loves Eddie. Eddie loves Maggie. Eddie was never interested in Fran.
Indeed.
Fran is old enough to be Eddie's sister.
Well, we skip. Yeah,
We skipped a bunch of stuff. Chester
Yeah, what
gets
the
gifted
heck?
to Cece.
Oh yeah, we missed that part too. Yeah, Chester. We missed. Chester was introduced. Chester was missed when Chester got introduced.
This is the out of order recap.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Should we give Cece Chester or a toaster? Dog toaster, dog toaster.
Yes, yes. Chester was introduced instead.
Chess.
Fast forwarding, Maggie storms from office, from not from office, from dining room table or kitchen. No, dining room table.
Maggie's hair in syrup.
Yes.
Maggie storms off.
Then Maxwell tries to offer ice cream to Maggie. Maggie refuses.
Maggie wants Malamars.
Max and Fran fight.
OGC. Malamar.
Maggie and Fran reconvene. Or not reconvene, but like make up.
Gracie's hungry for waffles.
Yes. All right, that was way back then. You're going. I'm ahead of you. Past. We're in different time zones. I'm so far ahead of you.
Butler's pantry.
Yes. Addie shows up with pork chops or pork, something like
Ribs.
that. Yeah. Yes.
Niles is looking for a ladle.
Yes. She thinks he's Don Juan.
Cece has Fox on her coat. They think Chester's dead. Chester's alive.
He's alive. Chester gets flossed.
The end.
Yes.
Wow, that was a great recap.
Yeah, I went a little more Wild West this
This is
time.
wild. Thanks for joining us for yet another episode of A Fine Podcast with your host, Amanda and...
Joseph. And make sure to go follow us on all our different platforms.
at A Fine Podcast.
Yes, and X, we're _fine podcast.
That's right. We hope to have conversations with you all there, and we can't wait to see you next time.
We'll see you next time. Ciao.
Bye.
Yeah, so they're thinking about doing Chinese because Fran wants to show them how Jewish people eat Chinese
Yes.
people. But-
Jewish people eat Chinese people.
All right. Chinese food.
Okay, let's just start over again.